This week is Mental Health Awareness Week, and I think this year many of us are not only paying a lot more attention to our mental well-being, but experiencing the effects of poor mental health. A lot of things have changed in the past few months, but that doesn't mean that we won't ever get back to normal. It just means we need to keep focusing on ourselves, supporting others, and doing what we can to get through challenging times. Gardens and gardening make us feel so much better, and that's a fact. And the real magic is that it doesn't matter what size of garden you have. Maybe you have a balcony and opted for a potted garden, but you can still experience the joy of growing and planting and watching the wildlife regardless of the space. It's all about utilising that space that you have and making the right changes so that it meets your needs. So remember a few weeks ago when we talked about the 5 ways to well-being: connect, take notice, give, keep learning and get active. They could never be more important than they are right now. Can you grow something and give it to somebody else? Can you bring more wildlife into your garden? Can you move plants or plant new ones and get active and transform your garden into a place of solitude? And what can you learn about your garden? Do you want to learn a new skill? Maybe make a bird box or feeder, or even upcycle some old garden items. Or maybe you just want to enjoy your space a little bit more, relax and take notice of everything around you. We hear more and more frequently that gardens and green spaces are associated with better physical, social and mental health. And the British physician Sir Muir Gray even once said that everyone needs a natural health service as well as a national health service. So just let that one sink in for a moment. So your garden is already providing you with a one-of-a-kind service, but how does that help your mental health? As someone like many of you who deals with mental health issues on a regular basis, the last 8 weeks in lockdown has helped me to realise the one thing is that I really rely on my garden to provide me with a sense of calm and perspective, and also allow me to distance myself from the things that are getting on top of me. And for me, I've got so much out of just watching the birds. I've made feeders, learnt about the different types of birds that visit the garden every day, watched their behaviours, and even in the most recent days, watch them bring their fledglings into this space to eat and learn. So I want to share some information with you. I want to give you as many hints and tips that will help you combat your anxieties and help you more on the days when things just aren't right. So today I'm going to focus on learning about and take notice of those big feathery friends that visit us on a daily basis. So if you didn't already know, the RSPB and I have a breakfast bird watch every morning, and it's a great opportunity to force you to look at who's visiting your garden, but also see what's visiting other people's gardens. So how many garden birds can you think of just now? How about this guy? The wood pigeon is for me one of the more characteristic birds that I see most days. And if a day goes past when I don't see them in the garden, I'd nearly say something had to be wrong. They have largely grey bodies with a distinctive white patch on their necks, and if you see some that look a little bit like these ones at this time of the year, then they're probably juveniles. They will develop their white markings after about 6 months. So if they're all grey with a black ring right round their neck, then that's actually a ring-necked dove you have visiting, and they're very cute and very gentle birds. All of them will eat seeds and grains and fruits, and especially wood pigeons are really not liked very much by farmers. They are considered to be a pest because they will demolish whole crops. So if they do visit your garden and you're also trying to plant a little vegetable patch, maybe try and steer them in a different direction. So I did a little bit of research and I discovered a couple of things that I wanted to tell you about these birds. And each week for the next 2 or 3 weeks we'll learn about some different birds in the garden. But wood pigeons actually have an area called a crop in their neck, and the crop will hold up to 1,000 pieces of grain. And I honestly have no idea why they would even need to hold that, but again, absolutely amazing that they have basically a pouch where they can store that. So that's no wonder why I see them eating all my bird food all the time. They're just taking it away to store it somewhere. Another thing is that they build these ridiculously flimsy nests, the sort of nests that you think would not support anything. And they lay in those nests these little eggs. And this is a wood pigeon egg. Now, I didn't know it was a wood pigeon egg until I did a little bit of research. It is completely white, feathers still intact. And they lay 2 eggs in their nest, and then whenever the young hatch out, they just take them and discard them. So I think that's probably how that one ended up in my garden. It doesn't look like it's being predated by anything. So there's a few other birds that still visit the garden, and those are, in terms of large birds, and those are your rooks and your crows, your magpies, and you may be fortunate enough to have a couple of jays visiting, which are from the magpie family. A lot of those predate on the smaller birds, so you may notice that it gets very quiet whenever they're about. But nonetheless, the one thing is, people don't really like magpies, but they are really stunning in terms of their feathers and that lovely black and white design that they have. So if they were much nicer birds, I think we would all love them a little bit more. But anyway, that's just the way it goes, and that's nature, unfortunately. And as they say, and it's the circle of life. So next week we're going to be looking at the smaller birds, but that's a few hints and tips about some big birds that you might see. And by watching those in the garden and by taking notice of them, you're actually practicing mindfulness, and that means that you are zoning out from everything that's going on in here, and you're focusing on those birds. You're focusing on their feathers and the colours and their bird song, their movements and how they fly and all of those. And while you do that, your breathing will slow down and you will relax yourself. So it actually does have a lot more benefits than what you may at first think. So there's a couple of other things that you can do if you're not so into birds, but you still want to create a nice environment where you can watch things. Well, you could buy some plants like this. Now this is a French lavender, and it smells absolutely amazing. This will probably double, triple, possibly quadruple in size. So make sure that you give it plenty of space. And when you plant it up in your garden, not only will you get that beautiful scent that comes from it, but you'll attract butterflies and bees as well, which will be really enjoyable to watch. So that's one thing you can do. If you wanted, you could also plant quite a lot of herbs out in your back garden around your patio, and then early morning and late evening, whenever you go out, you will be absolutely engulfed in such a really lovely scent from all of those. And some that you might be interested in would be the likes of oregano, lavender, basil, thyme and mint. And don't worry if you can't get to a garden centre, because you can actually pick those up in the likes of local grocery stores. They may look like they're in the fruit and veg section, but they're the exact same plants, and you can take those and bring them on, take cuttings and grow more. So it's a great opportunity. One thing I noticed this morning that I would definitely encourage you to do is get planting, and our seed packs are nearly ready to go. But I was delighted whenever I saw this morning, because this is one of my nasturtiums, and I have waited 4 long weeks. These have taken an exceptionally long time to come up, but I am so thrilled to see those finally coming up, because I was starting to believe that I was doing something wrong. So there's a real sense of satisfaction there. And just on when learning and trying to get the most out of your garden, if you don't know something, don't be afraid to go online and use Google. Just type it in, and I'll give you an example of how I used it last week for something to do with the garden. And I was sitting working away, and a extremely black bumblebee or bee of some sort landed on my laptop, and I put the video up here in the corner so as you can see him. So you can see that he is really black, and he was moving around quite quickly. In fact, I'm calling him a he. Apparently now it is actually a female bee, but I didn't have a clue what it was. So the first thing I did was search black bees, and it was a bit vague. So then I searched black bees in Northern Ireland and got some really helpful information. And then the next thing I did was go on to the BBC Springwatch Facebook group and typed in, or I put up my picture and just said I'd never seen it before, and over 100 likes and comments later, I had this massive people following this little bee, and a lot of them were fascinated, and a lot of them in the same position as I was. But every so often you get someone saying, I think that's a bee from wherever, or I have a bee farm and I actually know that is this type of bee or that type of bee, and so on and so forth. So the internet can be really useful for finding out little bits of information, and of course you can use it anytime. So even if you're out in the garden and you have your phone, you can get a quick answer. So it's really useful. That's it for today's class. Hopefully it'll have been in some way useful for you to help you realise how powerful the garden is at providing you with a sense of calmness and providing you with an area where you can relax and just be yourself and clear your head from everything that is just whizzing around in there, because we are bombarded on a daily basis with a lot of stressful things. Don't forget that this week isn't just about Mental Health Awareness Week. We want you to look after your mental health all of the time. Pay attention to it. At the minute, you may be expected to care for other people. Always remember that you won't ever do your best job caring for other people if you don't care for yourself first, and make sure that you're in your best place to do that. Take care of yourself, look after your family, and I'll see you next week for another Guru Gardening session.